And we're delighted to have our third presentation, and this is from Sarah Peters, who is, I guess, the organizer of Integrated Circles. So I know we're going to have a very interesting input from Sarah. So Sarah, are you here actually? I don't even... Yeah. Oh, you are, you're there in front of me. Great stuff. Okay, lovely stuff. Thanks a million, Sarah, and away you go.
Okay, so let me try and share. So, hello everyone, my name's Sarah Peters. I'm an ESOL lecturer and I work in further education. I work with students who've moved to England from all over the world, and they're learning ESOL, which is English for speakers of other languages. And my presentation today is an overview of an action research ESOL Circles project for my PhD that I did with the University of Sunderland. So firstly, I'd like to move on my slide. Here we go. I'd like to share the context. The first map here shows the world's conflicts as I started investigating in 2017. ESOL students often arrive in the UK as refugees or asylum seekers, and others come as economic migrants. Secondly, at the time, the UK was going through Brexit, and part of this included how immigrants are portrayed by some as detrimental to the economy and social cohesion. At the same time, funding for ESOL classes had been reduced by 60% in real terms between 2010 and 2016, with a 38% drop in participation as it became increasingly difficult to find classes, and that undermined chances to develop the language skills to join the workforce, contribute to the economy and integrate in wider society. And as a teacher, I'm required to include national strategies of prevent, British values, life in the UK and employability, stereotyping language learning as a tool for anti-terrorism and functional skills. Thirdly, my workplace was under ESFA arrangements for economic recovery, so teaching and learning was heavily restricted to numbers. Enrollments, retention, attendance, achievement, classes and staff were cut, making it even harder to settle into an area in the top 10% of multiple indices of deprivation in the country. I work with adult learners aged 19 plus, and classes are based on the 2001 Adult ESOL core curriculum to organise ESOL across 5 levels of proficiency, from entry level up to level 2. Students work towards skills for life assessments in reading, writing and speaking and listening. Individuals wanting language learning, but it was hard to find and increasingly defined as learning for work and integration. So how could I best support in this situation? That's what I was asking. And that brings me to my values. What are my values and why are they important to me? I don't view students as numbers. I understand learners as unique individuals. Each student, each person has a different set of circumstances, different aspirations and different learning wants, needs and speeds. But together in the classroom, we are a group and our relationships there are key. I take a real life view rather than abstract data, and that influences my methods as I'm primarily concerned with the human dimension. My research is about circles for adult ESOL, that's structured collaborative reading, discussion and writing using allocated roles. I seek to understand this by interpreting what participation in circles means as a social experience for ESOL learning, but appreciate that the work by my individual self as the teacher researcher with individual students cannot be exactly replicated. My ontology is of the humanness of social meanings, and epistemology lies in the qualitative human understandings as knowledge rather than statistics, facts of statistics and numbers. And my aim is to take a practical approach as part of an ongoing and evolving inquiry. My route is action reflection, and I'm I'm so grateful to Jean McNiff and Jack Whitehead for offering this cycle. The context and problem of meeting learner needs gave me cause to reflect and plan for change. This began in 2010 after I'd read 2 articles about reading circles. They prompted me to set up a lunchtime ESOL reading group using Mark Furr's reading roles and stories. It gave the readers a space to talk about their reading and make personal connections to the texts and with others in the group. But in order to continue, I had to justify my research to the institution and honour how Skills for Life assessments and qualifications enable next courses or employment for the students. So my 2012 iteration was to map Furr's reading circle roles to the adult ESOL core curriculum and to mix Skills for Life reading texts in with fiction. And after 6 weeks with 9 level 1 students, mock exam results improved by 33% across the group. And that started me wondering if the circles could translate to writing. And after some experiments myself, in 2016, I used Sylvia Gunnery's model for 6 weeks with 44 entry 3 students, where the average writing mocks increased by 21%. Now, these 2 projects appeared to be working because of the small group discussions, not the reading practice, nor the writing practice in itself, but the speaking and listening together about reading and writing. And that made me ask, what is the role of learners' conversations in circles? So I identified, oh, I'm sorry, I've skipped a slide. So this is where I was thinking about how could I develop circles to bring in reading, writing, and speaking and listening together. So to do that, I identified common overlaps in circles to blend the roles. Some of the roles work for language accuracy through comprehension and cohesion, like the summarizer and the feature marker. The passage person focuses on sentence level and the word master on vocabulary, that they see as necessary for text information and sequencing, but can also feed into personal use in wider life. The discussion leader widens the circle further by identifying themes and feelings, and the connector brings a cultural perspective. The roles give every student a specific task and a reason to think and contribute. And I also mapped where they fit in with the assessment criteria, but the roles really expand what's possible by bringing real lived experience to tasks and friendship to conversation. I spent teachers' time with the integrated circle, but I was also researching circles with 62 entry 3 students. I collected multiple forms of student data. I was learning from literature, I shared the project with others, and developed my understandings from my own reflective diary, but also participant and critical feedback. It was messy. And I think it's summed up by Carr as a non-technical mode of situated and contextual practical reasoning to find a more integrated and more comprehensive understanding of the situation. So as I tried to better understand circles, I had to think about how to go this in democratic and inclusive ways. My personal background as white, Western, a first language English speaker, I was more privileged. I had a position in the classroom. I had to help participants to make informed choices to join the circle and be respectful with the things they agreed to share. I used unstructured observations, examples of their work and reflective records, semi-structured interviews, and keep checking back, not to warp their words or the experiences they shared with me. I gained a deductive insight into different theories of ESOL education as restricted by a narrow curriculum to controlled language accuracy, compared to a more fluent, autonomous dialogic experience. And inductively, I used my professional experience questioning of the situation and participant feedback to look for what shone out as significant. And going back to Carr, to make wise and prudent judgments about what in a particular situation would constitute an appropriate expression of the good. I initially used descriptive coding to explore data for emergent patterns, and this helped me to name some principles and themes in circles in the active year 17-18. And for each literature review, each circle and its documents, I used color codes to visually mark key aspects. And I did that in real time, so I could move my colored post-it notes around as I was sitting and thinking and sifting through the information. And that color coding worked as my subcoding. And the color I used my experience and reflective judgments to group those colored notes, and that highlighted repetitive patterns of action and consistencies for the main outcomes in the active year 18-19. From then on, I kept returning to look and listen and think, and just moving ever deeper into the information and into the thoughts and the things that were shining out to identify 5 main impacts by 1920. So for those impacts, class discussions help students learn about the required assessed skills through reciprocal language learning. Students teach each other about their worlds through their discussions, and that can transform ideas by sharing lived experience. A learning community grows through regular practice as students come to understand the circle format and build and manage their own relationships. Limitations on learner autonomy as language beginners sets a role for the teacher to, yes, monitor for the successful application of assessed skills, but also to support participants think beyond the literal, bond as a group, and to be flexible with their lesson plans to respond to learning needs plus the set curriculum. From this, I developed a theory of circles. So for a circle to start, it really rests with the teacher over here. The teacher has to introduce the process, to train students in the process, and to sustain the process. This is really a controlled accuracy side of a circle in how it's planned, organizational support, how it works, procedural support, and free discussions guided by a teacher offer cognitive support. However, once a circle conversation is underway, the teacher no longer has control. The speakers, the students, direct their discussion. As they begin to talk and listen, the conversation becomes their space of appearance for their personal thoughts, feelings, and characters, with the freedom to develop discussion live in the moment. It's not scripted or rehearsed like Skills for Life speaking and listening is. There's no guaranteed route to this free student-directed participation. However, personality clashes, language misunderstandings, and traditional expectations of the teacher's role can get in the way. But when it does work, circles are a space for learning to learn together and learning to be together. And I'd just like to share this final word from Poppy, that's a pseudonym, not a real name, of her experience of integrated circles. I do have a long list of references for today. And I do also have 2 reflection prompts here if they are required. And thank you very much.